Rob Maaddi's here with a lot of Eagles stuff to go over as the camps and voluntaries and all that stuff's happening, and he joins me now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. He looks very relaxed over there in a nice setting. How you doing, man?
What's up, man? How are you? Getting ready to go down to the ballpark for a little Phillies action, Mike?
Little Phil's today. Any fights?
Yeah.
Joe Girardi got a little MMA matchup going to happen down at the Phil's? Or they clear that all
you know
up?
what he said before the game? When he saw him, it's just all love, man. It's all love. He and Gene Segura talked, and it's just like having a family argument, family dispute, and he's back in the lineup. So they got some issues with injuries, man.
Yeah.
They really do.
Well, Bryce Harper's in the lineup today too, so I guess things are turning around a little bit. So we'll see. Phils and Marlins, of course. Rob covers the Phils for the Associated Press. He also covers the Eagles for the AP, and the Eagles making news. They finally got a corner. Now, let's not start with that, all right? Let's go with Ryan Kerrigan signed yesterday, Rob. I'd like to get your take on what's the message of bringing a 32-year-old guy into a team that doesn't have a lot of expectations here?
I think their expectations, Mike, are higher than a lot of people may think. I believe that this team looks at the division that they're in, the talent that they have, the excitement level with the coaching staff, and says, hey, we can compete this year. And even if we don't win a division and don't get a wild card spot, we can be competitive for 17, 18 weeks. And Ryan Kerrigan's a guy, he's as old as Brandon Graham. So you look at him, the veteran leadership that I think he can provide is going to be a big deal for this team, for that defensive line rotation. He's still a really good football player. 5.5 sacks last year, only played 38% of the snaps. So he was very efficient. When he got out there, he was able to get to the quarterback, pressures, hurries. And I think right now with him, with Graham, with Derek Barnett, with Josh Sweat, and on the exterior, on the edges, they have a really decent rotation. And, of course, inside Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. So I think this was a move where they look at it and go, we're going to be competitive, and we're not going to just sacrifice this season. And he didn't cost them much. $3.5 million isn't too much to pay for a guy who I think has done a tremendous amount over the course of his career. 95.5 sacks, franchise leader for the Washington football team.
I feel like 90 of them came against the Eagles. That's how torturous he's been, and many of them against the Eagles. 13.5 against Philly, 13.5 against Dallas, 13 against New York. So he's owned the division. But you just said it, Rob. I've been mentioning this. Brandon Graham was drafted in 2010. Kerrigan was 2011, and it doesn't feel like Eagles fans think that Graham is out of gas. So should we think that Kerrigan is at the end of the line, or was it circumstance in Washington that he didn't get as much playing time as maybe he will here?
Yeah, I think that's the case in Washington. They invested heavily in first-round picks along that defensive line. I think it's 4 of them. I think they have 4 first-round picks on the defensive line, and it was just a matter of getting those guys out there on the field, and that kind of phased out Ryan Kerrigan, and that's why his snap count was down last year. I would anticipate that he'd be right there, right around that 38 to 45% snap counts, and that'll give him an opportunity to make some plays. And with a guy like that, teaching the younger players, because they've drafted some younger guys, he's somebody that they can look at and learn from and try and emulate a little bit of what allowed him to be so successful over the course of his career. And I do think, Mike, that he has a little bit left in the tank. I don't think this is a 32 years old last season on the way out. I think this is a guy who could still play a couple more years, and depending on how successful the Eagles can be this year and whether or not they want to retain him beyond that, I think that's something to be determined over the course of the season for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting because, yeah, you're right. I mean, you're going to have some snaps where you're going to have 33-year-old Graham, 30-year-old Fletcher Cox, 32-year-old Ryan Kerrigan lining up there. If they can stay healthy, how productive can that front four? You add Javon Hargrave into the mix. I mean, I'm imagining the Eagles think they're going to get a lot of production from that front four. Plus, you got Derek Barnett and Josh Sweat, too.
Yeah, and I think what that front four does is it alleviates some of the pressure on the secondary. If you're getting to the quarterback and you're getting hurries and you're forcing the quarterback into quick throws and really has to make decisions just like this at the snap of the finger, that's going to take some of the pressure off the back end. And that's where right now you look at this Eagles defense, the weakness is in that secondary where they still don't have a real starting corner opposite Darius Big Play Slay. So, and also I think the safety situation still has there's a lot to be answered there because Rodney McLeod's coming back off injury. Jalen Mills is gone now. So they got a lot of question marks in the secondary. The better the front four can be, the more pressure you put on the quarterback. That's just common knowledge in football. That's going to help out the back end.
Yeah, they did make a trade for a corner today. We weren't joking. Josiah Scott is a fourth-round pick from last year, but he's just another slot guy. I mean, they still need help on that outside there.
Yeah, they do. And I just wonder how much Gannon's system is going to be able to help the incumbent guys, the guys they already have on the roster. And at what point do they go out there and make a push for Steven Nelson, who's still available? He was available when we talked about him last time. He's still available now. I do think it's a post-June 1 situation because we're getting closer to June 1st. We're getting closer to most likely resolving Zach Ertz's situation, which will free up some money and then allow them to go out there and bring in. Keep in mind, they haven't officially signed Ryan Kerrigan. They agreed to terms with Ryan Kerrigan. So he probably will not be signed until next week, and he might even be pushed into, what are we now, May 18th? Might be closer to June 1st. So they still have to navigate some salary cap issues, and I do think they'll still bring in another veteran corner, and Nelson might be the guy that they got targeting.
Let me ask you, if they bring in Steven Nelson, is that reason to think, maybe this team is going to be better than we thought?
Mike, I was at 5 to 7 wins, and that was before the schedule came out. And the schedule came out, and I don't like to make a big deal out of schedules 5 months in advance and go down and go win, loss, and all that stuff. But when I see their final 8 weeks, they don't even have to get on a plane. And I see that they got the worst strength of schedule in the NFL. Like they got the easiest schedule. I think this team is more closer to 7 than the 5 that I thought going in. And then I just, every time I hear Nick Sirianni talk, I know a lot of people like to pick on him and just his excitement level and all that stuff. I'm actually encouraged. When he spoke last Friday and he talked about, again, I think this is the third time he mentioned this, and he said, I adapt my system to the strengths of the players. That's a positive for me. And I think this is a guy who could put in a system that is going to cater to the strengths of his players and be able to maximize their talent. As much as I was a Doug Peterson supporter, I don't think Doug and his coaching staff maximized the talent of the players on that roster. And I think that Nick Sirianni could do that. And what does that do? Does that put him in a 7-8 win range? Well, in the NFC East, 7-8 wins, that's got you in the mix. And when the last 4 games of the season come down to 2 against Washington, 1 Dallas, and 1 the Giants, you're right there against the division opponents competing for potentially that division. I don't see a team in the East winning more than 10 games. I think 10 games would be the high level, and that would be Dallas for me right now. But who knows what's going to happen? So I think they see themselves as a competitor, as a team that could be in it, and that's why you will go out and sign a veteran cornerback.
Yeah, and Rob Maaddi's with us from the Associated Press. Now, you asked Nick Sirianni about how much of a priority is the quarterback this year in finding out who that guy is, and he kind of wanted to dance around it, and he continues to say competition. But is this year really all about Jalen Hurts and finding out if he's your guy? I mean, does he get a 1-year, 17-game trial to show he's the guy?
Mike, I think so. I really do. I think the most important thing for 21 is to find out if Hurts can be the guy in 22. And if not, what do you do then, armed with 3 first-round picks, potentially guys becoming available? And I'll say this. That was a question that I really wanted answered, that I wanted to ask of Nick. But I completely understand why he, as you said, danced around it. And I'll give him credit because I think that was only maybe the second or third time that we've had Nick Sirianni only. Every other time it was at the draft. There was Howie. There was Andy Weidel. So that was him. That was all Nick. And he seems to me already far more comfortable than he was at the first news conference for sure. But he seems to have mastered the art of saying a lot without giving anything away. And I didn't expect him to say, yes, Rob, Jalen Hurts is our priority, developing him this year, making sure we know. But I wanted to give him that opportunity and see where he went with it. So if the question was put out there, he avoided answering it, but I give him credit for already mastering that art because you need that skill as a head coach in Philadelphia.
You sure do. And he's, I'm sure he's thinking to himself, I got 25 questions or whatever it was at the first day of rookie minicamp. Where the hell am I? Thunderdome? I mean, my God.
You're right, man, because you don't get that anywhere else. Maybe in New York, maybe in New England, but Belichick doesn't answer anything anyway.
Right.
But Belichick's news conference is over just like that. I don't know what he says in rookie camp. I'm on to OTAs or whatever he could possibly say. But, yeah, I mean, we come after Nick hot and heavy in various ways. The question after mine, I believe, was also about Jalen Hurts. He finally was like, oh, you guys aren't going to let this one go. But he did a good – I wanted to see that out of him. And I didn't want him to go on with 5-6 minute answers like he was doing in his first news conference, because you say too much in Philly and then you're going to get every word scrutinized. So I thought he said enough without giving anything away, and he showed that he's come a long way. And I'm impressed. I really am impressed, and I'm excited to see what he can do. The more people that I talk to that have either coached with him, played for him, anything that have had experience with him speak so highly of the guy that I'm ready to go out there. And I wish it was August and it was preseason already.
Well, I'll tell you that I'm, and that is one of the reasons, like he mentioned Devonta Smith as advertised. And it's as simple as something like this, Rob. He says he catches everything. This team couldn't catch the football for 3 years. So for him to say catches everything, it sounds like, of course, but they couldn't catch the football. And I am very, very intrigued to see how they handle these wide receivers because of his background. Does J.J. Arcega-Whiteside all of a sudden figure out how to play, or is he a total stiff? I think that wide receiver room, John Hightower, 6'2", with speed, can stretch the field. How do they I think Howie was giving his message. We're excited to see, you can't pick receivers. Oh, I know how to pick them. We couldn't coach them. I'm very intrigued to see how this wide receiver thing shakes out. That, to me, is going to be the plot of August.
Mike, I'm with you 100%. And when Nick was hired, there was all that talk about, they're bringing in a guy who can be a guru for Carson Wentz. And I was like, no, look at what he's done with wide receivers. He's a wide receiver, former wide receiver himself. He's a wide receivers guru. I think he can really unlock at least the potential of Jalen Reagor, who's a first-round pick. Even if he doesn't, even if JJ is who JJ is and isn't much of anything, I would be extremely satisfied if he can get Jalen Reagor to play like a first-round pick, because I'm pretty confident Devonta Smith will be that guy. I'm pretty sure Devonta Smith will live up to the hype and live up to the expectations. In fact, I sat down this week with Hall of Fame wide receiver Tim Brown, who is one of only 4 wide receivers to win a Heisman Trophy, and he's enshrined in the Hall of Fame. And I asked him about Tim Brown, and he's really high on Devonta Smith. And when you get a guy who won a Heisman, who's in the Hall of Fame, and he tells you this guy, Devonta Smith, is the real deal, that's pretty good to hear. So that's going to be coming out in my AP Pro Football podcast on Thursday. I forget what day it is today. It's Thursday, though.
Today's Tuesday. That'll be out on Thursday. He's Rob Maaddi, at Rob Maaddi on Twitter, covers the Eagles and the Phillies for the Associated Press. And, we talk about the different battles. I guess, it's funny, for a team that doesn't have high expectations, it seems that there's not going to be too many battles for starting jobs on this football team. They want to keep saying competition. I could see on the offensive line, left tackle, and maybe that's it. And then the corner opposite Slay, and maybe that's it. I mean, there's not a lot of battles for start. Do you see a lot of starting battles that are kind of starting in these voluntaries, OTAs, and carrying into minicamp? I'm like, where are these battles coming from? I see left tackle and one corner spot.
Yeah, and it depends really also on Lane coming back, and his expectation is he's going to be healthy, and Brandon Brooks, he's going to be healthy. If both of those guys are ready to go, that solidifies the right side, and Isaac would have to be the incumbent at left guard. But I think there's a possibility that because this coaching staff isn't married to these guys, right? They didn't draft them. They weren't here for their success. There could be some turnover. There could be some change. Maybe that's a position, because you look at left tackle, Andre Dillard, I do think is going to get every opportunity because he was drafted in the first round 2 years ago to prove he can be the guy. But when Jordan Mailata played as well as he did, if Landon Dickerson can come on and be healthy and develop, They've invested in him. He can push for some playing time somewhere. You would think, where's it going to be? It would have to be at left guard. But yeah, that's along the offensive line. That's about it on the offensive side. On the defensive side, the opposite cornerback situation, other than Darius Slay, I don't know if they're still the safety spots are as settled as they may seem. That somebody might wow you, somebody might impress you, but yeah, you go into it for all the competition they preach. You're right, Mike. There isn't a lot of spots to be open.
Hey, I hope Kayvon Wallace says I'm the starter and he knocks out Harris or knocks out McLeod McLeod. He's obviously a big leader, so it'd be hard pressed if he's healthy to see him not playing. But that's all happening. Of course, Zach Ertz not there. No surprise. You said you would be stunned. Has that changed at all?
No, not at all. I don't anticipate Zach Ertz ever playing for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'd still be stunned, shocked, whatever way you want to describe it. I can't see that happening.
All right, Rob Maaddi, we'll end with that here, as I know you're getting to the Phils. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Good conversation on the Birds. Rob, good to see you, man.
Always, man. Thank you, Mike.